Hi everybody, I'm Zilla Blitz and welcome to the July 2023 edition of Upcoming Wargames. In this series, we take a look at various tabletop wargames that are in various states of production from companies scattered across the globe. And I talk a little bit about an overview of the game, and then I talk in particular about why this particular game has captured my interest. First game I want to talk about today is Blood and Fury. Now, this is the second module in the World at War 85 series from Lock and Load Publishing. And to distill this game down to its essence, or this system down to its essence, as there is now the second module and a number of expansions that surround it, this is the Cold War gone hot, 1985, East Bloc versus NATO forces fighting over various places in Germany. Platoon level system. And this newest edition, the Blood and Fury module, adds the solo system right into the box. There's a campaign system in the box. I've been fortunate to get an advanced copy of this game, and there is just a ton of stuff in there. The other important thing to note about this system as it stands right now is that the rule set has evolved to version 2.2. And this is the point that I'm jumping into the system now. It's a great rule set. And I'm going to be telling you, so this is to drift into why this game has captured my interest. I've always been a greater fan of things like World War II, World War I, even medieval ancient combat than modern era combat in tabletop war games, largely because I think sometimes it presents a level of accessibility that I'm not familiar with. I'm not so up on the systems of modern era combat, and that complexity has tended to overwhelm me. I feel like with the crystallization of the rule set in version 2.2, this makes it a very playable system, and I'm finding that this may very well be the tabletop series that gets me to really kind of dive in and enjoy and like modern era combat. And again, I'm fortunate enough to have an advanced copy of the game, so I'm playing right now to make some content for the channel, so there should be some content coming up for the channel, but I am really enjoying this one. And I think the series itself has a ton of fans. And now that it's kind of evolved into this version 2.2, I think it's even more enticing for people to jump into it. So I think this is one that's going to be a huge hit. And judging by how well it's done on crowdfunding, I think there are a lot of people like me that are excited about this system and being able to dig in. It really takes modern era combat and makes it into a playable, accessible, fun system that you can really dig into. So, and then kind of reality check meter. This one is in its late pledge system right now, so you can still pledge for the game. It's going into production at some point. I think the initial expectations were that this was going to be done before now. So there has been some kind of delays to the production and things like that, but I think it is moving forward now, and we would expect to see it in the upcoming months, although I don't have any background information on that other than it's in late pledge and heading into production kind of thing. But Blood and Fury, World at War 85 system from Lock and Load Publishing. It is an amazingly massive system, and one I think if you're interested at all in modern era combat, you might want to keep your eye on as it moves through its final stages of production. This game is actually cheating a little bit because it's not so much an upcoming war game. It's actually already out. It's been out for like a month or so, but it connects to the next two games after this. And so I want to kind of do a little bit of a theme here. And it's so recently released that I think we can kind of still toss it into upcoming war games because it's only been out for a couple months maybe. So the theme is Stukas. And it is raining Stukas in tabletop wargaming right now, if you're not aware of that. And the first game we're going to talk about is this one, Stuka Leader, which is the one of the three that has already been released and it is starting to show up in people's hands. Now, this game is from Verssen Games. It's built off of the Corsair Leader and the Zero Leader series. And it falls into that category of the Leader series. So you get all of the goodness that makes up that Leader series. You get a dynamic campaign where you're going to have this role-playing element and build up the skills of your pilots. But one thing I think to mention in particular as we look at how these three games might be a little bit different is that Stuka Leader is much more than just a leader of Stukas. You're going to be leading squadrons of German planes, but there's also Messerschmitts, Focke-Wulfs, and you're going to be choosing the type of plane that you want in order to be able to carry out this particular mission in the campaign. So you've got this dynamic campaign that unfolds through a series of missions. You're going to be building up your pilots and kind of carrying out missions and things like that. But it's not just about Stukas. It's just that they've chosen the Stuka to be the one that kind of highlights the theme of this German squadron-based aircraft game. Now, all three of these games that we'll talk about, including Stuka Leader, are solitaire games. Massive campaign. And that's in particular, as I look at kind of all of these three games, Why am I kind of excited about all three of them? One, I like solitaire games a lot. I love dynamic campaigns with role-playing elements. And if you're familiar with kind of the history of this channel, you know that there is a 13-episode Sherman Leader entire campaign that I put up when I first started the channel. It's one of the most fun series of videos I've made so far on the channel. I really enjoy the leader system. Now, there's games of different design levels and kind of, themes and things like that. Modern era of World War II. This one, of course, Stuka. We got air, we got sea, we've got land. So there's a whole range of leader games that kind of play off this similar theme depending upon your niches and interests. Stuka Leader looks like one that is very well done. I'm hearing really good things about it, and so I'm kind of excited to see how this one plays out. Continuing this theme of Stukas, let's go to the second Stuka game. Now, this one is upcoming with a date released to be some point in the future. I don't think anything's set in stone, and there's not really a set schedule for it yet. This one is Storm of Steel, Ju-87 Eastern Front from Compass Games. Now, in this game, so in Stuka Leader from Verssen Games, you can control a number of German aircraft, and you're picking Stukas as one of them, perhaps, to carry out your mission. In Storm of Steel, you are controlling a squadron of German planes. And again, like Stuka Leader, this is a solitaire game where you're going to be controlling the squadron of German planes throughout the Eastern campaign on the Eastern Front. I think it starts with Barbarossa and it goes all the way up through Kursk. It's a lot of the same elements, kind of experience, building up your crew, getting experience, trying to survive these missions, a variety of missions. So thematically, somewhat similar to Stuka Leader, except in this game, you've got a squadron of Stukas and this is your crew that you're building up. Why has this game caught my interest? Well, all of these games really caught my interest for the same basic reason. Solitaire game, leading Stukas on campaigns, dynamic campaigns in World War II. I mean, what's not to like about that? That's just a fun premise. This one in particular, individual careers and histories for each of your pilots and gunners, historical-based missions. It looked like there's been a lot of emphasis on really kind of fleshing out this mission system. No two missions are going to be the same. Complexity is a 5 out of 10, which is fairly high for this. So this is probably going to be a little bit higher than Stuka Leader in that regard. But just a lot of stuff to really dig into as you're kind of leading and evolving this campaign with your squadron of Stukas over the Eastern Front in World War II. So yeah, color me excited. Now this one has a way to go. It looks like it's kind of at a future date on the Compass Games website. So it's still got some time before we're going to see this one, but it does fall into this category now, this triangle of Stuka games that all fall into the upcoming Wargames category. And lastly, our third upcoming war game in our reigning Stukas theme here, Ju-87 Stuka Ace from Lock and Load Publishing. Now, this one I can say a little bit more about because this is the one of the three that I've had a chance to play. So I had a chance to play an advanced copy. There's a couple of videos on the channel of a couple of missions with this one. This one takes a little bit of a different theme than the other two, in that the emphasis on this one is your individual plane and your individual pilot. Now, as the game evolves with this, you're going to be adding on more planes that you're managing and controlling. But the heart of this one is the story of you as a Stuka pilot going through a variety of campaigns in World War II. You can start in places like China or even Spain as kind of some of those oddly, the less common campaigns. Then it's going to go Poland. You're going to go a choice of, campaigns that are floating all over the place. But the story of this pilot as you go through the whole war is really the heart of this Ju-87 Stuka Ace. So a little bit different than Stuka Leader, which is a squadron of planes of various types, one of which is Stuka. Storm of Steel, which is a squadron of Stuka planes, and then Ju-87 Stuka Ace, where the emphasis, even though you're going to be adding on squadrons kind of level stuff to manage later, is that heart of this is the story of you as the individual pilot. Now, why has this game in particular caught my interest? So it's solitaire game, Stukas, World War II, all of those big thematic catches for me, if you would, are there. This one is just fun to play. Okay, I've had a chance to play this one, and then I had to send it on, right? Because it's an advanced copy, so I had it for just a couple of weeks. I got a chance to dig in, learn the game, play a couple missions. I am so excited for this one. Now, in terms of where it is, in terms of production, I think it's fair to say, back half of 2023, it should come to backers' hands. And I think you can still late pledge it on their game fund. I'll put a link down below and things like that too. But this one is a ton of fun to play. And one of the reasons why I really have enjoyed my short time with this one so far is the amount of agency in the missions. There's a lot of really fun decisions. Oftentimes, these types of solitaire experiences, they're often said you're playing on rails. And by agency, we mean how much do you as the player impact the outcome of the mission? And that doesn't necessarily mean if you have a low amount of agency where you're really not impacting stuff that much, that it's not a fun game. But I really like these types of solitaire games when they let you as the player, have interesting decisions that you feel like are really going to impact the outcome of your pilot's career, your squadron's career, the outcome of the mission, etc., etc. And I feel like Ju-87 Stuka Ace in this category of solitaire games is one of the best examples I've seen so far of allowing player agency and building in player agency to your dive bombing runs. You've got decisions to make about when to release the bomb. There's just the card system in the game really gives you and gets you involved in the gameplay. So you're constantly thinking with constantly a lot of fun things to do. Now, the only caveat I can say about this game too, it sounds like I'm really excited about it and I've already 100% decided. The only thing I can say is that I haven't played a campaign all of the way through. So I can't say anything about the campaign arc in this game, how difficult it gets. Does it get too easy? Is it too hard? Are there theaters or something like that or missions that are really, really hard? I can't say anything about that. But what I've seen about the game so far, I'm super excited about it. I can't wait for its fall release or its later 2023 release. So there you go. We have 3 Stuka games all coming out relatively within the same general, and in tabletop wargaming terms, the same general time span, right? A year or so. So we've got Stuka Leader from Dan Verssen Games. We've got Storm of Steel from Compass Games. And we've got Ju-87 Stuka Ace from Lock and Load Publishing. 3 upcoming, well, except for Stuka Leader, which is actually out right now, 3 new war games centering on solitaire campaigns that feature Stuka aircraft in World War II. Game number 5 in our exposition of upcoming war games, The Halls of Montezuma from Fort Circle Games, designed by Gilberto Lopez and Kevin Bertram. Now, this is a game of the Mexican-American War from 1846 to 1848. The heart of the game, there's a solo mode where I believe you can play as the U.S. side, but not the Mexican side. And then the heart of the game is the 2-player mode, one person playing the Mexican forces, one person playing the U.S. forces. Now, there is the military aspect, whereas the U.S. you're trying to invade California and Mexico. As the Mexican forces, you're fighting the defensive war of attrition. But also woven behind this is a card-driven gameplay system that weaves in the political influence into this conflict, because you're trying to keep support as the American forces to try to keep the political backing that you need to be able to execute the war. So it's not just a military level game, it weaves in a lot of the political circumstances that surrounded this conflict. Now, why in particular has this game caught my interest? This game, so this is Fort Circle Games' 3rd game. We have Votes for Women as their 2nd game. The Shores of Tripoli is their 1st game. And as I look at the Halls of Montezuma, I can see this feels like a successor sequel to the Shores of Tripoli. It's got very much both from the map design, from the rule set, from the way the game is designed as a 2-player game with essentially, I think there's going to be one scenario in it, much like with the Shores of Tripoli. There's one scenario. And at first you can look at that and think, well, this is going to play its way out in like 2 or 3 games. But if there's one thing that I've learned from the Shores of Tripoli is that Fort Circle Games is really defining itself as a game company that playtests the heck out of their games and makes sure that there are multiple pathways to victory, multiple strategies that you can take in order to win it. So in this sense, it feels almost like a chess type game where chess is always the same game, and yet you can play it 100 times and still figure out new things about how to play. Likewise, the Shores of Tripoli is that way. Probably the game I've played the most since I've returned to wargaming over the past 2 years. Every time I play it, I learn something new. Just when I think I've got a winning strategy, I figure out something that I want to do differently, or someone does something to kind of beat that. I feel like the Halls of Montezuma is going to be the same way, where there's going to be this richness of gameplay. And if the Halls of Montezuma has the same richness of gameplay that the Shores of Tripoli has, I feel like this is going to be a game I'm going to absolutely love, especially in its two-player format, because I think that's really where the Shores of Tripoli shines. So I'm very much looking forward to the Halls of Montezuma, and in its reality matrix index here, it is designed to ship. It's saying it's going to ship on November 11th, 2023. So coming up still at some point in this year, in the next 4 or 5 months. Very much looking forward to this one, the Halls of Montezuma from Port Circle Games. We're at the halfway point in upcoming War Games, and as we've done in the previous episode, I want to kind of go back in time now to take a look at 5 games that were in previous episodes of upcoming War Games and to check to see how they are doing. First up, A Hot Dry Season, designed by Patrick Mullen and to be published by Legion Wargames. When we first looked at this one, it was in their CPO pre-order system, and it needed a certain number of games to reach its publication and production level status. It's still looking. Now, I am big on this game because the designer is someone I've followed on forums for a long time. I think he has absolutely amazing knowledge of the Vietnam War, and this game sounds like a fantastic hidden movement, limited information, fog of war type game to simulate company level combat in Vietnam. I think it's going to be a fantastic game, and as I'm looking at their CPO system right now, it has almost got 200 pre-orders. It still needs 51 more to go, so it's about 80% of the way through the system, hoping that someday in the next few months, this one will release the minimum amount of orders required and make it over the top and become a reality. Second game, Infernal Machine, the Dawn of Submarine Warfare, designed by Jeremy Smith and Ed Ostermeyer. This game is from GMT Games. It is now cleared its cut and made the cut in the GMT P500 system, which means that it will go into production and become a reality. It took a little while to get through there, which really surprised me because this game looks like a fascinating combination of both an economic simulation, because you're trying to design and build these submarines in the dawn of submarine warfare, kind of the Civil War era, and then you're going to send them out in missions in the Civil War, and there's kind of RPG elements and leveling up your staff members' skills and stuff like that. Seems like a really unique blend of both a business simulation and a war game. I'm surprised it took as long as it did to make the cut. I am, however, happy to see that it's made the cut now and will be sliding into production. Third game, Purple Haze from Phalanx Game, a game for up to 4 players where you're going to lead a squad of soldiers in the jungles of Vietnam on various missions. It hails itself as very much a story creation game, which I am very big on. Now, this game is still late pledges are still available on GameFound. It was supposed to reach completion and ship, I think, the summer of 2023 originally. It looks like now the new date is sometime in 2023, but things are moving along. It's just gone a little bit more slowly than originally anticipated. It is a Kickstarter, GameFound kind of thing, so that to a certain degree is to be expected. But still liking the looks on this one. I'm getting updates as it's been moving through its production system. Looks really good. Very much excited. Hopeful that we'll get this one some point in 2023. Third game, Stalingrad Roads by Nuts Publishing. Now, this game is a sequel to Victory Roads and Liberty Roads, 2 very playable operational level games of World War II. This one, of course, Stalingrad Roads, takes that system and builds it up around the Stalingrad campaign in World War II on the East Front. Good news on this one, it looks like it's in its pre-order stage finally and will be shipping, according to their website, Q3 2023. So if you liked Liberty Roads or Victory Roads or want to check it out, design, really high level of design, very playable operational level games, easy to learn and fast playing. This one looks like a winner, and I'm excited to see it become a reality because, Stalingrad, operational level game, and I really like the series too. Last but not least, Western Front Ace from Compass Games. Good news on this one, it's shipping now. I just got my shipping notification for it a few days ago. It should be showing up on my doorstep any day now. This one, of course, we looked at when we looked at Aces of Valor from Legion Wargames, comparing the 2 games. Aces of Valor is kind of a squadron level oriented simulation solitaire game. Western Front Ace, you take the role of a single pilot in World War I. So I'm very much excited about this one. Designer is Gregory Smith. He's got great kind of pedigree in this type of solitaire game. So it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. And the good news is this one is now shipping from Compass Games. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. Now let's take a look at Die Seehunde from Simon Colress and to be published by Compass Games. This one's in the early stages of development. This is a solitaire game where you're going to control a midget German submarine in the latter stages of World War II. Gameplay is divided up into 2 stages. The first stage is a strategic level simulation where you're going to be navigating around trying to find targets of opportunity. Once you do, the game shifts to its more tactical level where you're going to be going in, actually trying to sink targets of opportunity with your midget submarine and escape without dying. campaign game over a number of missions and all these types of things. Sounds really excited. I'm very much looking forward to this one. Now, a couple things about it. Why am I particularly interested in this one? Well, one of my favorite games is by Stealth and Sea. I find the historical, the narrative behind these types, the bravery of these midget submarine pilots and crew is absolutely astounding. So if this game captures that same sense of narrative that By Stealth and Sea does, I think it's going to be a real winner in my book. For whatever reason, submarines, it's World War II, so big thematic things, you know that I really like to play those games. So for that reason, I'm really picked by it. Solitaire game, I like solitaire games. Midget submarines, I really liked By Stealth and Sea. It's checking off all the buttons for things that I really like in terms of a war game. So very much excited to see how this one develops over the course of the next year or so. Looking pretty good, and I'm very intrigued by this one. Game number 7, to be totally honest, it's a stretch to call this one a war game. Okay, it is a conflict game and things like that, and for sure, and there's conflict in there. But I want to put it in here because I think it's going to be awesome. Well, actually, I know it's going to be awesome. I've played it. What am I talking about? Witchcraft, designed by David Thompson, Trevor Benjamin, and Roger Tinkersley, to be published by Salt and Pepper Games. It's Kickstarter GameFound thing has just started, so you can jump in on it if you're interested. This game, you control a coven of witches set in kind of a mythological kind of New England colonial times, European times era, where you're trying to fight. The witch coven that you control is trying to achieve good things for the village, but there's a lot of mistrust for you as witches. So you're trying to win over a trial of judges at the end with your actions by completing all these different missions. This, of course, is the sequel to Resist. And if you've been following the channel, you know that I absolutely adored Resist. It was not a game I thought I was going to like. Absolutely find it fascinating. It is such a mental puzzle, so challenging, so much fun with so much depth and replayability to the system. Witchcraft takes that system, expands on it a number of ways, changes it a number of ways. So it's got a lot of freshness while kind of remaining true to that core gameplay. I've absolutely adored playing the prototype that I've got. It is a big winner, and I can't wait for the final version. So a lot of reasons why I'm really excited for this one. And if you did get Resist and you liked Resist, absolutely, this one is a no-brainer. It's like a card game, so it's not super expensive. So in terms of value proposition, this one's a pretty good path forward if you're looking to kind of get good gaming value out of your gaming money. So Witchcraft from Salt and Pepper Games. Looking forward to this one. It's in GameFound. I don't know when the shipping will be. Maybe sometime in 2023. I know Salt and Pepper Games tends to be pretty quick with their games and things like that too. So hopefully we'll see this one in 2023. Our 8th game in upcoming War Games is not a new war game, but it is a game that's getting a fresh update, actually completely revision to an enhanced version. Now, this is a classic war game from 2010. I'm talking about Julius Caesar, Pompey, and the Roman Civil War from Columbia Games. This game is a game that has a long pedigree, very well received in 2010 when it was published. And it is very much, in one side take Caesar, one side take Pompey. You're battling in the Mediterranean for the control of Rome, basically. So you've got this kind of classic pedigree of war game here. Very much a two-player game, right? Because there's Fog of War. It involves a block system where you're rotating your blocks to represent different step levels and stuff like that. You're not going to quite know the strength of your opponent. So very much designed for two players to go head to head, one person playing Caesar, one person playing Pompey. Now, why has this game piqued my interest? Well, for a number of reasons. One, it is a classic war game, and I'm a big fan when I see companies come back and say, let's take this game that's almost 15 years old now, and let's update it, give it a complete fresh coat of paint. They're upgrading the board, the components, the rules, the player aids, and everything like that. Just freshening the whole thing up so it's got this new feel, because wargaming's advanced a lot in the last 15 years or so. So I really like that. I also like to know that this game is a game that's on Rally the Troops. And that's great when companies, I think, make these games available for people to come in and test. So if you want to test the game right now, see if you like it, you can go to Rally the Troops and you can play it two-player right as it is. So that's a great thing there too. But it's really nice, I think, to see games like this, because most of the time when I hear about games like this, I'm looking for copies and they're old and they're beat up and they're already used and you're trying to figure out how to get them and stuff like that. So it's really nice when a company makes it easy, upgrades it to modern standards, and especially for a classic war game that has this game's pedigree. So very much excited about it. It's also an era that we haven't really looked at that much on the channel yet. So I'm excited more to dig into kind of ancient combat and explore it in this format. And I am very much looking for really solid two-player war games to delve more into as we've now coming kind of fully out of the pandemic. Wargaming clubs around the Twin Cities where I live are really coming to life. This one feels like it's a game that's very playable and gets to the table quickly. So I think for those types of two-player experiences, this one feels like a really good choice. So looking forward to this one. It is in late pledge on Kickstarter right now. I'll put a link, of course, down below. I don't know the production and shipping kind of guesses and predictions for it right now, but you can still get into the late pledge as the time of when I'm making this video right now. So Julius Caesar, Pompey, and the Roman Civil War from Columbia Games. Games number 9 and 10 are going to take us to outer space. Now, in a previous episode, we looked at Away Team from GMT Games, which is probably in the top 3 of the games that I'm looking forward to in the next year, a couple years or so. I am very excited about both of these games for a couple of reasons, but let's talk about them first. First game we're going to look at from GMT Games as well is Red Dust Rebellion. This is the Coin Series Volume 13 going to outer space, right? I mean, coin system, outer space, it's like, that's perfect. This one has 4 factions. It's going to have a solitaire model, very much Martian based. So we've got, let me see, the factions are here too. We've got Martian Provisional Government, Corporations, Red Dust, the Dusters, and then the Church of the Reclaimer, meshing together this massive coin system with all the pedigree and excellence of the coin system, solitaire mode for playing the game as well. It's just a marriage made in heaven, right? I mean, this science fiction theme, Mars, different factions battling it out for the planet, coin mechanics. Yeah, color me excited. I mean, it's like you had me at coin and you had me at sci-fi. Those two things together, I think, are just an absolute kind of a perfect mix and kind of way to explore and to evolve the coin system into a different direction. The good news too for this one, if we're talking about the future of games, it's in art in final development. It blew through its P500. There are over 2,500 orders now in the system. So, I mean, again, a lot of people, I think one of the things that we could use more of are science fiction based war games. At some point, I would love to do kind of an exposition and kind of an exploration of a number of these games over a period of a few months on the channel. It's just a matter of finding the time to do so. But the idea of you've got war game, coin game, outer space, Mars, yeah, it's like a brilliant idea, and I'm super excited to see this one become reality. So Red Dust Rebellion from GMT Games in final art and development in its production status right now. For our last upcoming war game, we are going to stay in outer space. We're going to shift over to Compass Games for Galaxy Force, Battles of the Fallen Stars. Now, one of the things I like to do for these episodes is to poke around on various wargame company sites to get ideas to see what they're doing and what they're developing. All of my information comes from this. The reason why I put it in here, let's talk about the game first, okay? And then actually let's talk about why it's picking my interest. The reason, the things that caught my attention here and the premise behind the game is that it's a solitaire, looks like an operational level war game. Individual counters are fleets of starships of about 1,000 ships each. You can see a map, which looks like a map of kind of star systems for the game. And so you've got this, and then the premise behind it in the description is that you've got this empire that's falling apart into various different factions, and you as a solitaire player are going to step into this massive chaos and try to forge your way forward with your group or country or empire or build an empire kind of thing like this. So it sounds like a lot of operational level combat that could play out in a ton of different ways in this chaotic dissolution of a space empire. Really cool premise. I think the idea has really got me. And that's, again, to shift into the idea of what's caught my attention from this. Space-based war game, solitaire space-based operational level war game. Are you kidding me? That's really cool. Now, my hesitation here is that it also feels like there's going to be something that could be really hard to pull off, right? This is a challenging game to design and make. You got to make the AI feel real. You got to make your opponents feel real. You got to have engaging gameplay. It's got to have some depth and some variety and things like this. So I'm not saying yet as to how I think it might go. I am super hopeful, however, that they can pull it off and that this game will be totally awesome, because if they can pull it off, it could be a very unique game in the wargaming niche, and it could be a ton of fun to play. So I'm kind of got a very sharp eye on this one. It says to be released at a future date. So I think it's still got quite a bit of production. There's not a lot of information yet up on the site. I haven't heard a lot about it, but it is something that my radar is dialed into that I want to keep an eye on going forward. And if you do like sci-fi based Wargames, it might be something for you to put onto your radar as well. If you know more about it, I'd be curious to hear down in the comments down below. Well, there you have it. We have frittered away another 20 to 30 minutes chattering about upcoming tabletop wargames from various companies across the planet. Again, one last thing to mention too, these games are in no particular order. They're just games that have caught my curiosity as I've kind of scanned over websites and looked and kind of at the future of tabletop wargaming. I would be very curious to hear which of these games you're most interested to play. And then if you'd like to see some of them appear on the channel, please drop some comments down below, as well as if you know of other games that you would like to see covered in these episodes. We're going to try to do them every 2 or 3 months or so. If you have enjoyed this episode, you might also enjoy some of one of our tabletop wargaming shelf tours. We take a look at 10 semi-random games from my wargaming collection. I'll put a link to the latest one of those up here. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and have a great day.